Hello, welcome to Leading Age Virginia's podcast, Voices in Leadership. I am Melissa Andrews, President and CEO of Leading Age Virginia, and so excited for our conversation today with two of our colleagues from Paymerang, Colleen Christ and Lynette Rock, who are going to share their insights with us around resiliency, which is certainly a topic that is important to all of us, especially after the past 2 years. So I just want to start with saying thank you for being here to both of you. It's fun to see two human beings in the same room, which is a first, I think, for our podcast recording. Would you just introduce yourselves and share a little bit about you?
Yeah, I can go first. I'm Colleen Christ, Vice President of Business Development at Paymerang, and I am a native to Richmond, Virginia. I've grown up here, went to VCU, did my undergrad in strategic advertising. My career path has kind of taken a couple turns along the way, but I'm currently managing all of the partnerships for Paymerang. I now have a team, which is super exciting. But Leading Age has been crucial in our partnership strategy, and was actually looking back over through our notes, and it looked like 3 years ago on Valentine's Day is when I started the conversation with Leading Age. So it's kind of come full circle, and I'm really excited for this opportunity.
Thanks, Kelly.
And I'm Lynette Rock, and I lead learning and development here at Paymerang. And I have been living in Richmond for quite a while. I was born in Texas, though, and I actually worked for a large financial institution for 21 years with their learning and development as well, and have enjoyed it. And my life has taken a lot of twists and turns as well. I was a dance major in college and ended up needing health insurance. So that's why I actually got my job at the financial institution that I worked at. And then I landed at Paymerang, and I love it here. And it's a wonderful place to be with a lot of wonderful people. So
fabulous. That's awesome. So Colleen, do you just want to share with our listeners what Paymerang does and who you are?
Cool. Yeah. So if you have not heard of us, we do accounts payable automation. So we help communities, organizations across the country automate their accounts payable. So we have an invoice automation and a payments product. So instead of organizations having to manually track all their invoices and process payments, they can do it all automatically through Paymerang.
How long have each of you been with Paymerang?
I've been with Paymerang for 4 years.
And I've been here 3 years, on actually March 4th.
And how old is Paymerang?
So we celebrated our 12th birthday in January. So we've been around since 2010. It was when I joined 4 years ago, there was less than 30 people.
Okay.
I don't know how many people were here when you joined.
There were about a little over 60 when I joined. And so we're right at 200 right now. So.
Yeah. So
that's incredible. That's astronomical growth for sure. So is everybody based in Richmond, or do you have teammates that are in different parts of the US?
We do. We actually have some folks that are in Portland, and then we also have some sales reps that are in different locations across the country as well.
Okay, so you're back in an office together. Were you remote for a while over the past 2 years?
We were.
I'll let you go.
Yeah, I guess, because my situation is a little bit different. So when the pandemic hit, I was actually part of our marketing team. So we went fully remote for pretty much the entire first year of the pandemic. And then in January of 2021, I pivoted with my career, and I took on my current role, Vice President of Business Development, where I'm in sales. And so then I started coming back into the office. And now I'm back in the office full time, unless I'm out on the road traveling to events and things for our partners.
What about you, Lynette?
And then on the learning and development front, we also, the whole office, shut down there for a while, and we have an operation. So we had to figure out pretty quickly how to pivot and do things remotely and virtually. But we've been back in the office off and on now for the last, I guess, about 3 months or so.
Okay. Well, happy anniversary to Leading Age Virginia and Paymerang. And we're so happy that we've been partnering for all this time. And I think since we started this podcast, we've really spent time talking to women in leadership. This podcast idea grew out of our Women in Leadership Steering Committee to talk about kind of the unique challenges that we face. I think there's lessons learned for everybody. And eventually, I guess, we'll invite maybe a man to be on the podcast. But it's it's really been fun to have these conversations with women leaders. So our topic today is resiliency. And so talk about kind of, how has resiliency played a role in your career advancement? Especially the past 2 years has tested everybody, but I think we all have our stories of resiliency even before the pandemic.
I guess I can go first. So coming out of college, I wasn't exactly sure. I had done an internship with a finance institution in Richmond, but I wasn't really sure marketing is this very large umbrella, and it kind of felt overwhelming. I wasn't really sure which path I wanted to go down. So I got some experience with a publishing company here in Richmond, and then I joined, similar to Lynette. I was like, I need a full-time gig. I need health insurance. I kind of need to grow up and, figure out what I'm really doing. And so I joined a company to do marketing. I kind of ran their marketing in line with their leadership team. And then from there, they were going through an acquisition, and I came across Paymerang. And at the time, it was a smaller company, and I knew there was growth on the horizon, but it wasn't exactly right there on the horizon. It was something that was, hey, we're reaching for this, it's coming. And so I kind of had to have a little bit of faith and have some resiliency through the first, especially year or two at Paymerang, because it was something that we didn't have a marketing team. So I came on, and that was something that I had to work with our leadership team to develop. And I was able to bring in the skills and lessons I learned from previous roles to help do that. And I think resiliency has kind of led me to where I am today. We didn't have a partnership team as of October 1. So it's very new. And that was something, if you had told me when I was going through my interview with Paymerang that this was an opportunity, I'd be like, I don't know about that. But it's been a really great fit and a really great marriage of my skill set with marketing, and then also with sales and being able to work with people. I love being able to connect with people in the community. I love being able to help solve problems for people. And so resiliency has kind of led me through my career to where I am today.
Great. Thank you. How about you, Lynette?
Really, and I like I said, I was a ballet and modern dance major, worked in Texas with different dance companies and things like that. And as we all know, that doesn't always offer health insurance. So I needed that. So I got a job with a financial institution. And I think that really helped me be resilient in the way that I was really showing that toughness of, have I got to get through this? I think that's one of the important things that you have to have when you're resilient. And so I continued to work there, and I found that I really loved that work quite a bit. And it helped really kind of get my critical thinking skills going. And really that continuous learning is a huge part of that. And that's what I've leveraged on for my entire career. But I worked my way up at that financial institution to a really nice role, which actually moved me to Richmond, Virginia. And I love it here and have my family here. But at that point, it was getting really big, and it was hard to actually make changes and do things to really drive a big change. And then Paymerang came on my radar, and they were like, oh, this is like startup, back whenever that financial institution was smaller. And they were like, let's do this. And so it really is about that excitement and the creative juices. But when I got here, there was no learning and development person. I was the only one. And I had to really kind of think outside the box of, how am I going to get training out to people, and how am I going to make things happen? And it really did exercise those muscles of, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So I had to invent some things that weren't here before. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been very exciting, but I got to bring my knowledge with me that I had learned along my career too.
So Lynette, how did that feel to be able to say, okay, I have this dream of being a dancer and working in dance schools, but then there's the reality of just the day-to-day. Can you share a little bit about what that mental process was, and emotional letting go, I would imagine, when you made that shift?
It definitely was. It was tough because I was in Dallas at the time, Dallas-Fort Worth area. And at that point I was doing a lot of dance, and I was also doing a lot of choreography. And I got this job, and then I started to be torn between what's my dream versus what is it that I really want to do and make money, and kind of really, I had money. I was like, I've got money, and I can actually work during the week and not work all weekend and all of these other things that I was doing previously. And so it was a really tough inner struggle at first. And then as time went on, I started to make friends, and then I found an outlet for my creativity, because education, I got to do all the creative things that I was doing before. And then, they say the sage on the stage with learning and development. Sometimes I got a chance to do that. As my early career, and stand up in front of people and talk, which you can tell I really don't have a problem with that either. And so at the end of the day, it was really hard. But then I moved to Boise, Idaho with that company for a while. And that's when I really felt that pain of I'm not dancing anymore. And it's really, really tough. So I found other outlets to keep that creativity going. I started teaching yoga and doing a few other things as well. So I could continue to do that in my off hours. But it's hard to let go of a dream. It just is. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, I've got to let this go. But yet it's still a part of me, and it makes me who I am. So I enjoy that.
Well, and I think it just, we hope that we have a lot of young professionals who listen to this podcast. I think it just reinforces that you might have a path set out, but you just never know where you're going to end up. I mean, the joke in aging services is that nobody enters this field because they want to. They enter this field by accident. But the fact that you're now able to draw that dotted line back to your creative spirit and your creative foundation, and how you value creativity and innovation into the work you do, it's like clear looking back, but in that moment when you've got to make that choices, it couldn't have been easy.
Yeah, it wasn't easy at the time, but now I love everything I get to do. I get to have fun every day, and I'm just as creative and having just as much fun and planning things out. And it really is all about critical thinking and about challenging yourself. And no matter what you do, you can always do that. And that creativity is always there. You can always have fun with it.
Yeah. So Colleen, I have a question. It's totally selfish because my stepdaughter is a junior at JMU and she's majoring in marketing. So when you look back to, when you were at VCU, what advice do you wish you had entering this enormous field of marketing? What would you tell students who are thinking of that as a career path now? What should they consider as they start to look to the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said, marketing is such a big umbrella. I went into marketing. I wasn't one of those people growing up where I knew I wanted to be a dancer. I had this very clear direction. Yeah. And so looking at schools felt overwhelming. And I was like, I want to do something that I love. I want to do something that I can be good at. I also like being creative. I like the idea of like creating something, working with people. So I actually kind of stumbled upon marketing, and VCU has a program. It's strategic advertising or creative advertising. So I was like, I'm going to stick to like the strategic side of it. I took some creative classes, but I really like the kind of business aspect of it. But I think if I could go back and give my own self some advice, it would be one, to just keep an open mind. I think it's really easy. People hear marketing and they think, oh, you're going to go work for like a big shiny agency and move to a big city and work on these really big accounts. And for some people, that's their path. And it's really cool and exciting. I have lots of friends who have worked on some major accounts and I love seeing their work. But for me, my path was different, and that's okay. And I think just knowing that from the beginning, instead of feeling like I'm always kind of behind because I don't know exactly what I want to do, but to your point, kind of just enjoying the journey and seeing how where you've been can shape where you are currently. And even if experiences don't feel like they're connected, you can connect them.
Yeah. And it feels like you both kind of took a risk, right? Like, jumping into these different opportunities. And I feel like resiliency has a role to play with risk tolerance or risk aversion. So why is resiliency so important, either in the workplace or at home or both, to each of you?
I think for me, it really is just about knowing that you can do something and make it through something, because the definition of resiliency is really about facing difficulties and how you manage those, and your basically your mental toughness and your toughness to get through a situation. So I think for me, it helps me know that I can do anything if I put my mind to it, and I can make it great, I can make it fun, and I can make it worthwhile. And I think that's the thing that is the most important to me from a resiliency standpoint. And it also helps others too. So I have a daughter who's going to be going to college here before too long, and I'm very excited about that. And I know that that's all part of the change too. It's just all part of the change, and making sure you know how to manage it and move into that change and be ready for it. That's why it's important to me.
Yeah. Well, ditto to all of those things, but then just tacking on to that, I think also for me, I've realized it's kind of a mindset. Like I've had to adopt this like resilient mindset. And for me, what's most helpful at work and at home is just knowing it's all temporary. I think has really helped me adopt a sense of resiliency to kind of move through these things. I know if I'm having a bad day or a stressful week, it's all temporary. So I'm going to come out on the other side. And I think resiliency plays a huge key to you getting through to the other side, because it's knowing, hey, I can push through, I can get through this situation, and I'll come out on the other side and have a lesson that I've learned from it.
Yeah, it's such an important, I love how, I mean, we're going to talk about that resiliency muscle and how do you strengthen it, because I think we live in a society now that's based on immediate gratification, right? I mean, and just the constant scrolling. And so, you know, it's easy to think that things are temporary and they are short term. But it's also easy to think, I'm never going to see my way out of that, right? Like there are all these dynamics at play. And, you know, when you think about, I mean, for our members who work with older adults, oh, the stories that they can tell, the lives that they've lived, right? And then you think about, you know, the younger generations who are struggling with different types of challenges. So, you know, how do you think people can go about kind of strengthening those resiliency muscles?
I can go. I think one thing that's helped me, especially in the past couple of years, so I'm earning my MBA at VCU currently, and it's been challenging. It's been a great experience, but one thing that I've learned about my resiliency muscle is sometimes I can't do it alone, and so it's very helpful. And there's times where I do need to reach out to peers or mentors. I have a peer coach that's been extremely helpful in helping me kind of take a step back. If it feels like it's one of those situations that it's never going to end, I think that's where having a network, having support, having people at work that you can reach out to and touch base with, that's huge. And then I think the other key for me is just being patient. I think working for a startup in a really fast-paced environment, it's very similar to social media. It's like instant gratification. Things move so quickly, but sometimes things also take time. And so I think knowing when to push and when to pull and when to wait is also critical in being resilient.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. And I guess it was about 10 years ago, I had an aha moment where I was going into work one day because every day there was a fire drill, and I was like, oh, there's going to be a fire drill. And I finally realized I just needed to accept it. And it's that moment of acceptance that you just have to go through and say, there's something that's going to happen today. How am I going to react to that? Am I going to be ready for that? No matter what it is, it could be a great thing. It could be a fire drill. It could be some sort of problem that comes up that you have to work your way through. But it's really about setting that mind into a place of having a growth mindset where you're going to come in and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to deal with something today. How do I deal with it? And I think that really changed a lot of things for me. I try to come into things and situations much more calm and trying to be the voice of reason and maintaining perspective. I really strive for that since I had that moment of, oh, okay, something's going to happen. I've just got to know it's going to happen and be ready for it.
And don't you think certain practices like gratitude journals or just remembering gratitude, taking that minute either at the beginning of the day or the end of the day to say, this is what I'm grateful for today. Does that grounding, do you think, help build with the resiliency muscle?
Definitely. I know that's something that we do in our family quite frequently as well. We do gratitude journals. We've done it for many years. And that's something that you have to look back on at the end of every day. And I know we did some stuff at the office here too. I have a few coworkers where we would send each other texts every night with just the 3 things that we were thankful for the day at work. And it really was fun. We had a really good time sending that. And we kept it up for about a good 6 months of sending each other we'd send 3 simple sentences of, here are 3 great things that happened at work today and what I'm thankful for. So.
Yeah, we started this, or I started this week. It'd be nice if I told my team before I started stuff. But we're kind of hybrid. Everybody's technically in the office, but we're still scattered. General Assembly is going on, all that. So I thought Sunday we need to get back to one another on a more consistent basis, even though we're not in the office. So I just put a check-in question on our app, the app that we use to communicate, and said, what's on your mind as you start the work week? And then everybody kind of weighed in on what's going on with them for the week ahead. And I think it helps, bring us together. It helps me as the manager of the group to understand where people are with various things, but sharing the gratitude, asking those reflective questions of one another. Colleen, I think you were going to jump in with something, and I went that way.
No, okay. You're good. You're good. I mean, the gratitude journal is a great idea. For me, the idea of journaling felt a little overwhelming. Like, I don't have time to sit down and write this entry. So my family actually found this, it's 365 days of gratitude. So each day it just gives you one little prompt, and it's like, I keep it in my nightstand, either in the morning or at night, I fill it out. And for me, that's made a world of difference. It's something so simple, but it doesn't take a lot of time to do, but it definitely has helped me feel more resilient.
Yeah, I was sitting in a waiting room recently, and I get these affirmations that pop up on my phone a few times a day, and, just to take a moment and read them. And there was one that came up that just has stuck with me. It's been 2 weeks now. I say it about 947,000 times a day. I have a very strong-willed kindergartner in my house, and a very strong-willed bulldog in my house. So the affirmation is, I choose calm over anxiety, faith over fear. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Lynette, about being that calming force. I am anything but the calming force in my day-to-day life. But it has just resonated with me. And now I'm a little concerned that I'm developing some type of obsessive compulsive disorder with the amount of times that I repeat it in my brain, because it's like a lifeline, though, that one line. And I know other people have, mantras or affirmations that they use every single day that really, again, it goes back to that grounding, to remember that, this too shall pass. Anyway, for what that's worth, as I give people a little insight into my hysteria.
No, that's good. That mantra, "This too shall pass," is actually one that I use quite frequently, and it does help center you quite a bit. It's one of those things. It's like, this too shall pass. If you just walk in and say that, it's all going to be okay.
So do you have any examples of you want to share about the impact of resiliency on your life, either recently or long term?
I think probably COVID is the best, the best one from a recent perspective for me here at work, because we did have to flip everybody to onboarding them virtually. And that was pretty interesting and exciting. And we had to do it within like 2 weeks. We were, okay, we've got to train everybody. We've got to hire people and train them and get them up to speed and ready to work in a completely virtual environment, which we had not done here before. And so it took a little bit of time to figure out, but we got it together with a little help from Zoom and things like that to make it all come together. But that was really a moment where we were like, are we going to be able to do this? We were having an inflection of growth at that point. And we had to stop and we had to figure it out and kind of go, okay, what are the tools we can get? How do we make this happen? And it really is just about saying to yourself, okay, we can figure this out. Let's just stop for a second and breathe and figure it out. And that was something that I think was really big for Paymerang at that point, because it's also changed the way we approach our training ongoing. Even if we come back in the office, it created some great advantages for us going forward. So that was one big one.
Yeah. And I guess in my world here at Paymerang with partnerships, I mean, COVID completely changed the landscape. All of our partners, we used to go out on the road and go to all these events and connect with people in person, and that all stopped. And it was, how do we pivot? How do we change? How do we support our partners? The conversation really shifted at Paymerang with us and partners, and it became more of, how do we support our partners through this pandemic? What can we do? And like, this podcast is a great example of something that came out of the pandemic that we probably wouldn't have connected to do this before. But our partners were very inspirational, I would say, just to be able to pivot with members and to support. I specifically am over our senior living, long-term care, and our hospital partnerships. And so seeing my partners in the trenches of the pandemic was really hard. But I'm really grateful to work for a company that was like, hey, let's see what we need to do to support them and just do that. Yeah. And we'll get through this together. And then from there, we can, kind of come back to a more sense of normal. But for me, that's been really a neat experience. And to be able to connect with partners has been huge.
Yeah, I think, when I think about resiliency, and I specifically think about our members and providers everywhere, that they were just able to catch their breath around vaccine rollout, right? Like, you remember the excitement and the anticipation. We've got vaccines. We're gonna move the needle, and then we had that summer, the summer where we all came back out, right? And then we went back into it, and what I hear from providers even now is they're just tired. When you think about the workforce shortages, you think about, talking to one of my board members last week where senior leadership was serving in the dining room because they don't have enough servers. So when you think about all that they're still dealing with in terms of operations, in terms of, safety and security of residents and team members, ongoing pandemic, just, reflecting on all that. And you think, wow, how can we continue to flex that resilient muscle? I don't have the answer to that. It's more of a statement of empathy and just acknowledgement that the people who are listening to this, are still very much in that work. Maybe not where we were 2 years ago, but and we're starting to see the curve come down, at least in Virginia. But it's amazing to me how they're all still going. And you must see that with the people, with your clients.
And to me, it's just incredible that I think everybody is tired. I think we're all kind of at that point of exhaustion. But I think the kindness helps. I think we can all just be kind to each other and know that people are dealing with that. I think that's just so important. And for people to be able to say, I know you're tired, is a huge step. Because then people they absorb that and they say, okay, they know that I'm tired and they know that we've been through a lot. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just acknowledging to people that, yes, this is hard. But I'll let you answer the partnership part there. So.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah, I was gonna say it's, being able to hear the stories. For me, I've realized I need to take a step back and hear what's going on in your world, in members' worlds, because that's not my space. And so the word empathy just really stands out to me, because it's been a huge lesson for me to kind of put myself in someone else's shoes. And for the people that do share, I think it's really important to hear from other people. They're struggling too, or, hey, I think it's made it easier for people to say, hey, I'm having a hard time too. And in some ways it's really brought us closer together, which is invaluable.
Yeah. There's something, when we talk about kind of authentic leadership and that role of vulnerability in authentic leadership, like, it's okay for leaders to share that they're struggling or they don't have the answer. And while at the same time being able to balance with their leading an organization through unprecedented times. And again, I think that's where that resiliency piece that we're talking about today really comes into play. I'm looking at our time together, and I do have one question for you. So what drives you? Like, what is it that gets you to jump out of bed in the morning and continue to do the work that you're doing and bringing innovation and thinking about collaboration and how you support those that you're working with? So just what drives you? What's most important to you in terms of your personal values?
I think for me, it's the interaction with the people. It's the teamwork. It's having fun together. And then one of our values is passion and positivity. And that's one of the things that I was so excited about when I joined here. It's just that passion and positivity every day and having a good time doing it, and then liking the people that you're around, because people are great. All people are great to know. They all have great stories. And so it makes life fulfilling at the end of the day.
Yeah, passion and positivity. I will say you walk into our office, there's an energy. Even when we were virtual, we found ways to connect, and that was really meaningful. But also to know that I'm working for an organization that has integrity, that strives to uphold, kind of be our best selves. We encourage each other from a professional to personal way to just kind of be your best self and to show up. And I think that's also kind of helped us as a team. We like to see the best in people, and that makes it easy to do our jobs. And kind of why I'm most excited is I like the idea of making a difference. I know I probably won't change the world in some big, massive way, but being able to change the world for someone or in some way is really meaningful to me.
So now let me just ask, now, if you're grouchy, does that mean you don't come to the office?
It means you might need to eat a snack before you go to your desk or talk to anyone or get some free coffee,
Usually if I'm grouchy, it's better when I come in the office, because then I get over it, because I have people here that smile and we have a good time. So
well, I can definitely say I'm a witness to you living out the values. And I so appreciate that positive and positive, and
passion and positivity.
Passion and positivity. Thank you. My gosh. I've had one of those days. I couldn't remember the term case study earlier. So I'm just having one of those days where the words, they're not on the tip of the tongue like they usually are, even though you just said them. But I do think that's so important for organizations to understand really and be able to articulate what their culture is. Because if you are a grouchy person, that might not be the right place for you, right? And I think that especially with the organizations that we're working with, culture is just the foundation of everything. And when you suddenly have to change your operations overnight, right? Like when you have to change this stuff overnight, if you don't have a healthy culture, that just makes it that much more difficult. So I think that just a lesson learned for our listeners is to make sure you can really articulate your culture to people who you're bringing on board, right? And that it's that shared value system, because I feel the passion and positivity coming off of both of you. And so I can imagine what it must feel like in your office for a stand-up meeting or for a happy hour or whatever you have going on. I think, for us in our office, humor is a huge piece of what we do. We love to laugh together because as a mentor of mine once said, this is serious business, but we better have fun doing it, right? I mean, that's what keeps people coming together. Any last thoughts before we wrap up our time together? I've just really enjoyed it so much.
I've enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, this has been fun.
I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and I've enjoyed getting to know you, and I just am excited about our future as partners and where we're going.
Yeah, thanks for I was just gonna say thanks for the opportunity, and for everyone listening, just thank you for the wonderful work that you guys are doing. Yes. We know it hasn't been easy, so thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you both for being on here today. And for our listeners, stay tuned for our next episode of Voices in Leadership. And if you have ideas for the podcast, send them in. Send them to contact us at leadingagevirginia.org. Thank you, Lynette and Colleen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Paula, what'd you think? Before I say what'd you think, how has resiliency played a role in your life?
I think it's like what both Colleen and Lynette both said. You have to look back on your life and go, where do I want to go? The road is not clear. So you have to take the paths that are made available or that you make for yourself. And I think that's what I've done is, you just, so that path is blocked. So I'll take this path, and that's what you do. Yeah.
And you have faith that it's going to work out.
That's all I can say is that every move I have made or has gotten me to this point, I said, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yeah. That faith piece has been, especially in my adult years, has been a huge driver of just like I mean, sometimes you're just hanging on with your fingernails, right?
That's
To the
right.
faith that it's going to work out no matter what the challenge is.
Right. And you know that when one door closes, another one opens and all that kind of stuff. And it does happen. And you just have to be like, I forgot which one said it, but you just have to be open to whatever is out there and use that creativity. You don't have to be artistic and all that, but being creative within your mind and what you're doing. It's like, if you like something, let somebody at work know. And maybe that it will, fulfill itself.
Yeah, I did love Lynette's, observation around that intersection between creativity and critical thinking, and how if you hone those two skills or you have those talents in your toolbox, right, you can really apply that to any workplace setting.
Definitely. She said something. I can't even.
Were you having flashbacks when she said that they had to figure out how to put all their training and development online? Were you having flashbacks?
I did. I'm thinking, I remember March the 15th, 2 years ago, going, okay, Dana and Melissa are like, they are, getting all that stuff out there. And I'm like, I've got to get education out. How do I do that? How do I do that? Yeah. So yes, it was bad flashbacks, but it's all worked out. Just like I said, it works out because we're willing to let it work out. We were willing to try different things, new things, and just do what we had to do to, step up to the bar and take our shot.
Right. But I do think, that not just that resiliency, but specifically for your role as our director of engagement and education, who did everything in person. I remember that moment when you said we have to figure out how to continue to support our members and we have to do it virtually. And that was not necessarily in your wheelhouse. And maybe wasn't something that you were confident in your ability to do. And now you look back and here you are, executive producer of our podcast.
Hey, this is my best job.
Right? Amongst your other 25 jobs.
Right. And I wrote down again, who is it that's Confucius, find a job that you love, and then you'll never work a day in your life. Yes, the podcast is what I live for.
Me too. If only we could know. But I do think, I look back at, that and say there's a living example of, faith over fear, right? And calm over anxiety, and I think that your transition for us and your ability to execute that on our members' behalf is a beautiful example of resiliency.
And I was quite surprised that it happened.
But there you go. It goes back to, like Colleen saying, keep an open mind, because you never know what you can take on that you might never have thought you could have done. And now, she's leading this partnership initiative for them that they didn't have before. You just never know. And you've got to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? To embrace those opportunities in life.
So for you, for the past 2 years, what is your thought on how resilient you've been? What you had to change in order to get where we are today?
So I feel like when we were in the midst of the height of the pandemic, right, it was just so much like my whole focus was on helping our members, doing anything we can for our members. I'll say now, looking back, I feel like there was a window of time that I've lost. Particularly because Eliza is 6 now. So that 4.5 to 5.5 or 4 to 5 kind of time frame. 4.5 to 5.5. I feel like I missed a lot of that year because of how much we were working on. And so that makes me sad, obviously. But it also has helped me refocus on what's most important, right? And putting that phone down and, creating, because it was all blurred when we were all working from home, creating more boundaries and also being able to look back and say, as your education is a great illustration of it, but we were able to pivot and serve in ways that we've never had to serve before. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what our team accomplished. And I think there have been obvious, challenges along the way for everybody. But it's been such an honor to serve our members, during my career, but particularly during the last 2 years. But I will tell you, I choose calm over anxiety, faith over fear.
Don't blame me for that. But I also think that, our members have really appreciated all that we did. I don't think that that's what they expected from us. But I think it opened their eyes as to what we can do for them and how we can do things for them. And I give all the credit to you for leading us. But it has been, I think for our members, I think it's been positive and passionate.
Yeah. And I think it opened our eyes as a team to just, we had front row seats into how this pandemic affected those that we serve and those that they serve, and talk about being grounded,
Right.
and really being humbled when you think about the work that everyone has done. And just, as I sit here and we wrap up our conversation, I just keep thinking, how do we pass on the importance of building that resiliency muscle to the next generation? It's not necessarily something they teach in schools, right?
No, it's
So
not.
how do we continue to pass that down to the next generation? And we are blessed here at the association to have a few of those next generation leaders in our office. So what's our role? So my question and this is not a question we need to answer, but just to continue to think about, how do we help them hone that resiliency muscle as we've had to do?
And even those working with students, at universities right now, is what can we show to those students, that it's possible for them to do anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
Another wonderful conversation, Paula. Thank you.
It has been great. Thank you.